Today's topic is very difficult to talk about, but because it's so important, I think we should talk about it. So it's about suicide and what is suicide and how we can prevent it. So as you can see on the very first page, there is a number there, 833-456-4566. So this is a very important number. It's kind of like 911, but it's for anyone who is feeling intense emotions and who wants to take away their life. So that's why I have this number up. On Twitter, we see these tweets where they have this number up and they say we should retweet so someone can have access to this number. There is also an option for SMS, which is a text message. So if you seem to feel very overwhelmed, and if one is feeling very, very overwhelmed, and they want to take that difficult step, they should SMS this number. Okay, so what is suicide? It is an attempt to harm yourself so you can take away your own life. As you know, a normal person would not in their right minds would reach the stage. So of course there are factors that lead to a person to take this step. And I'm sorry, I'm stuttering, I'm having difficulty talking about this because it is something very difficult to talk about. But so suicide can also be an impulsive act that follows the use of substances. In some cases, people with psychotic illnesses, such as schizophrenia, they might hear voices to harm themselves. So the second point here is that it could be related to very, very complex health stress and health issues. So that means this person is completely not at fault. It's their health condition that is leading them towards taking the step. It mostly occurs when people have completely lost all hope and they feel very, very hopeless. As you can see in this picture, I think this picture is very, very strong. It's someone who is looking and he sees light and everything around him is darkness. And that's how he is feeling at the moment. He feels like he is in dark and he needs to take this step. And there are intense feelings that this person is feeling, and he thinks that this is the only way out. I have to end this pain and I have to go into the light. However, that's not correct, because there is hope, there is help available, and suicide, thankfully, can be prevented. Okay, so what are the symptoms of suicide? These are some of the symptoms that I narrowed down and are very important that you can see in someone who wants to take away their own life. So this could be something like a very sudden change in their mood or behavior. They're acting very, very impulsive, expressing the wish to die or end their life. This one is very interesting because I feel like I have been through something like this. You know, when it's time, when it's midterm season, you will see friends or people tweeting, I was crossing the road today, but I did not look both sides. Well, it's midterm season, so that's why I didn't look both sides. Most people joke about death so they can hide it. They use humor as a way to hide their pain. This is something that should be considered seriously, because I don't think I would ever joke about something like that, Or I would make a social media comment where I would say it's that time of the semester where I'm not looking right and left before I cross the road. I think that's very serious. And if your friend, or if your grandchild, or if your husband, or if your friend makes that comment, I think you should take it very seriously, because they are using humor to hide their pain. Another symptom is withdrawal from people and activities that they usually enjoy. So something like a person chooses to isolate themselves, and um, they're not enjoying activities that they usually enjoy. So they're completely isolating themselves. And for example, if they liked playing badminton, or they liked baking, all of a sudden they stopped all that and they don't enjoy it anymore. That's a symptom. Another one would be experience changes in sleeping pattern. Um, this is something that's noted. Of course, this person is having trouble sleeping because their thoughts are keeping them awake. And the very last one is interesting. It's giving away prized possessions or making preparations for their death. Now, I know my grandmother, there have been certain times when she would say, oh, you know, if I pass away, I want you to take this. Now, that is not something that she's giving away. She's just making a comment. But if your loved one, your family member, starts to donate all their money, or starts to give away their clothes, their property, their assets, and just their very prized possessions, they are making preparations for their death. That is something serious, and you should take that seriously. So what are some of the causes? What causes suicide, and what are the factors? So again, number one would be serious mental health. This person is definitely suffering from some sort of anxiety, depression, or schizophrenia, or an addiction problem. A lot of people are alcoholics, or I know something that is very common in teenagers is weed, the use of weed. And my friend, she's a personal trainer at the gym, and she says every single day she encounters people who are young adults that are using weed, and now they can't sleep because their addiction is so bad. So now they started coming to the gym, and they're expecting miracles, like that they're able to sleep, but they can't because they have serious addiction problem. So it's not just weed, it could be anything. It could be alcohol. Weed was just an example I used. It could also be food. Um, so anything with addiction, that could be a cause. So these are some of the causes. Family history of suicide is on the top. A lot of people who have a parent or their spouse or grandmother or grandfather who have committed suicide, they think that that's the way out, because at that time the person doesn't realize, but they have this thing. I know this famous celebrity who was a Bollywood actor. He committed suicide recently, and his mother also committed suicide. And the very last thing that he posted on Instagram was a picture of his mom and a poetry. And 2 weeks later, he committed suicide. So some of the risk factors are definitely family history. Another would be have made previous attempts. There are times when if somebody has already previously made an attempt, now this could be something as small as cutting yourself. I know a lot of teenagers have this problem. They have very, very impulsive personalities. And as a teenager, you're very impulsive anyways, but in general, anyone can be impulsive. And I personally know friends that have done this. They cut themselves and they find it peace afterwards, which is a serious problem because they are at risk of suicide. And if you know someone who cuts themselves, that is very serious. I know that in high school, if you do that, you get sent to the guidance counselor, and the guidance counselor calls your parents, but that's about it. I also think that there should be some really strong resources at school for this, especially in high school. Another thing would be complete lack of support from family and friends. This is a big one. A lot of people feel like they associate with people on a daily basis. They have family and they have so-called friends, but these friends are not there for them. And I know a lot of people feel this way. People crave real friendships. And if you feel like, especially with social media nowadays, it's very hard for people to have that bond with someone where they feel like, okay, this person is my real friend. It's not just a Facebook friend, it's a real friend that they can count on, that they can communicate with. So if a person, you know, is having a lack of support from family and friends, that's a very big one. And the last one is having access to weapons, medications, or any other lethal means of suicide. Now, this one is a little scary because in America, we know guns are legalized, and it also has the highest suicide rate. So if you know that you have access to, you have possession of these weapons, you're likely to use them, because if you're feeling that way, for example, if you have access to them, it's more likely that you would use these weapons. Now, the last thing is I wanted to point out is suicide can be prevented. There is hope. The vast majority of people who have suicidal thoughts or have attempted suicide do not die from suicide. Many people can recover from these experiences and live full and meaningful lives. There have been multiple cases when someone has tried to drown themselves or cut themselves, but they have made it to the emergency and they survived. They're a survivor. Now, the very most important thing and the reason why I made this presentation is how can we help? How can we help someone who we think has these symptoms or might be at risk of harming themselves? What can I do? What can I contribute? So the very first one is listening. And as easy as that sounds, it's actually very hard because nobody wants to listen. You have to really listen to them and take them seriously. That's the first and most important thing. Another thing would be not to judge. Don't judge or minimize their feelings. If they are telling you something and you just shouldn't brush them off or, oh, you know, suck it up, it'll be fine. No, do not judge or minimize their feelings. Be positive and hopeful. And always remember that suicide can be prevented. Ask them if they're having thoughts of suicide. Don't be afraid that you will put the idea in their head. It actually may be a relief to them that you mentioned it and that they can talk about it. Because a lot of people who are feeling overwhelmed, when they talk about it with another person, they can feel relieved. As we mentioned in the first slide, that the reason why somebody wants to take away their life is because they feel hopeless. But if you take the effort and ask them how they're feeling, they will not feel hopeless, and they can see that someone is there who is genuinely listening and cares. Go a little further and ask them if they have a plan. Now, depending on the answer, you may want to limit their access to those means, such as medication, knives, or firearms. Ask them to rate their suicidal feelings on a scale of 1 to 10. Regularly, ask them to tell you where they are on that scale, so you can assess if things are getting worse. Let them know help is available and that the cause of their suicidal thoughts can be successfully treated. And this is important because you need to let them know that they can be treated, and this is a problem. Encourage them to talk about how they're feeling, and specifically encourage them to seek help from a doctor or a mental health provider and offer to help them with this. Offer to help that I will book your appointment. All you have to do is simply just go and speak with the doctor. That's all. Make a safety plan with them. Who will they call if their feelings start to get very, very strong? Who can stay with them to keep them safe? Make a list of phone numbers of people and services that they can call if they feel unsafe. Avoid leaving this person alone if they are in a crisis. And lastly, seek support for yourself, because it's important that you care about your mental well-being too, because it can get very, very overwhelming. Okay, so what if someone I know is showing these warning signs? What can I do? If you see that this person is on the edge and they're very impulsive and you know they're going to do something, you have to, what can you do? You have to take them to the nearest hospital emergency department if you can do it safely. If the person will not go to the hospital, or you're not sure if this is the right thing to do, get help from a healthcare provider as quickly as possible. You can call the person's healthcare team or a crisis line. If your loved one is attempting or about to attempt suicide, you are not at risk. Do not leave them alone and call 911. Most importantly, keep yourself safe, and just remain calm and call 911. So again, these are some of the resources that I just wrote down. The Spectra helpline is great because it speaks different languages. There's the Toronto Distress Center, and I know that one is available 24 hours. So if somebody is, you know, feeling helpless at 3 a.m., they can call this number. They can also, the link, these resources are very, very helpful for family members. So you can click these links, and these links are very helpful, and they can help you and your loved one. And that's it.